Hello, everyone, and welcome to our once monthly Other Talk, which we do every third Sunday morning of every month. And this is to accommodate the folks who cannot join us at our usual time, which is 6:30 p.m. every Sunday.
Pacific
And
time.
yes, of course, Pacific
California
time.
time.
Yeah. And I am one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I am the one of your hosts that is not Noor Kyle, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, and we want to thank you for joining us. We have lots of people here this morning, which we love to see. It's awesome. We even have some new visitors. And this is likely to be a challenging conversation for us and possibly for you guys. Who knows? But we are going to learn a lot, I think. So, before we get into that, do we have any announcements we need to make?
The usual announcements where we
Ah,
say if you
yes.
are watching us on YouTube,
The spiel.
uh, yeah, welcome. If this is your first time, you're doubly welcome. And if you have not yet done so, please consider hitting that subscribe button and joining our merry, if somewhat mad crew. The subscribe button will not really get you any prizes or anything, contrary to what I might tell you. But you will get notified when we put new material up, especially if you hit that notification bell. And we would love to have you as part of our crew. If you would consider liking this video, we would greatly appreciate it, especially this video, because we have noticed a pattern. It's like with the Spanda video. Everybody liked it. But every time we do a video with Gurdjieff, there's a bunch of people who hate us because we are not Gurdjieffians. We just steal his shit the way he stole it.
All's fair.
All is fair, yeah. And so your likes will help to counterbalance the hate mail that we get and will be greatly appreciated. Also, if you would consider making a comment, we would love to hear from you. We get really good comments from really intelligent people for the most part. And especially if you're new, please tell us, hey, this is my first time listening, and I thought you were absurd, but I liked it, something like that. So
And
consider commenting.
and if you find that you would like to join in, you can find a way to join us through two avenues. You can join our mailing list, which we think is a great idea because that allows us some kind of connection, in case social media, for any crazy reason whatsoever, stops functioning the way that we all would like so that we can stay connected. You can join our mailing list below via MailChimp, or you can connect with us on Facebook via our Facebook page and our forum.
Yeah, and we would love to have you. We will keep letting people join the talk until there is more than we can handle, in which case we have to get more choosy.
Yeah.
But
But
at this point, we can handle probably 10, 15 more people perfectly happily.
yeah. And, it's fun to be part of this conversation. We learned so much from all of you, as
Yeah.
well as,
Yeah,
us.
we have no interest in front loading information into you. What we are interested in is the traditional Sufi method called sobet, which means to have a conversation, to talk. And we all learn more because the people who show up here tend to be pretty smart and have useful things to say. Some of them are smarter than us. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are. You'll figure that out for yourself.
They're all pretty cool. All right, so I think that's about it for now. So yeah, the whole like, comment, subscribe thing
Yeah,
applies,
yeah, do
obviously.
that.
With that
Or hate,
said,
comment, subscribe.
if you'd like, sure.
Yeah. I mean, some people seem to really enjoy that, so I like it.
Yeah.
I figure if I'm not pissing somebody off, I'm not doing my job.
All right, shall we get to work?
Yes, let's get to work.
Okay, so we are going to be leaping into our subject matter, which is whew, Gurdjieff. You want to read it off? I don't have it in front of me.
It
But
means
it's a
I have
great
to,
title.
yeah. Um, the title of the thing is Gurdjieff, Sufism, and the Terror of the Situation,
Yes.
and the Problem of the mechanical humanity. Because that is the terror of the situation. When you realize that, oh my God, I seem to be a stimulus response meat machine that is not controlled by my free will, of which I have none when it comes down to it, but is controlled by whatever circumstances are thrown my way, which is the unfortunate state of most of humanity. Let me repeat that in a different way. You're all robots. I'm a robot. Noor's a robot. We're all robots. And we are all programmed. And our job in this life is to find a way to break that programming and restore this machine that we are to its proper place so that this other thing that we can be will develop. Show of hands, who's upset yet? Damn. Try harder, Mushtaq. All right, so in Arabic, there are these two words. One is nafs, N-A-F-S, nafs, and the other is ruh, R-U-H. They can almost be used interchangeably sometimes. They can both translate as self or soul, but they are entirely different. Nafs is of the body, and it is created by your nervous system. It exists as long as the body exists, and when the body no longer exists, it is returned to its constituent parts, unless things are done. We say that there are levels of nafs, of which we are interested today in the first one, or the first three. The first one is called in Arabic nafs al-amara. In English, that means the commanding self. And this is the stimulus response machine. This is poke here, get this response. Poke here again, get this response again. Keep poking, keep getting the same response, whether the person wants the response or not. It is out of your control most of the time. Now, Gurdjieff talked about this when he basically said, you know, man is incapable of actually doing. He is moved about by the circumstances outside of him. And he always used the man thing because that was the nature of language back then. We didn't realize that women existed in the late 19th, early 20th century.
So we can read into that we were talking about humans in general.
Yes.
Because we now realize that women exist.
Yes. And can be talked about in their own way.
Goodness. Who knew?
Yeah. Well, anybody who lives with you knows. So, along with this, we have ruh. Ruh is not of the machine. So, Y'all know when you listen to the Abrahamic religions talk about the creation of humanity, it takes the same pattern, which is God hangs out, he picks up some clay or some other substances, and he shapes it into a body. And then he breathes life into it. Literally breathes life into it. And ruh means breath. So does nafs, but ruh means breath. And it is that portion of the divine reality that impinges upon the consciousness of the machine. And this happens so that that portion of the divine reality can mature itself and learn, as if it were a separate entity, which it is not, but it seems to be. Does that make sense so far? I mean, I'm trying to explain this quickly enough that we won't be here 3 hours from now. And you don't have to buy into this. This is just a model. It's just a way of talking
when we
about
say
it.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is a map. You don't have to accept it as the, the photographic image of reality. So Eugene says, "Can everyone hear me? Okay, like, is it pretty balanced between us?"
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay, because I had my audio slipped down the other day. Okay, so Eugene says, "If anyone takes offense to Mr. Gurdjieff's assertion that human beings are mechanical and highly vulnerable to suggestion, just observe the mass craziness spreading across the land today."
Damn rights. It is actually, in my estimation, getting worse. Because people are willing to be completely delusional these days. And I'm not just talking about the political parties that I don't like. The political parties that I like seem to be pretty much as bad, just in a different direction.
And I would agree with you on that. There is so much, stimulus response action going on in.
Yeah.
It's the internet is the perfect place for that to manifest. So, of course, we are also biased in that regard. Given that we're all here on the internet, that means we're all engaging with the internet, and we will see a lot of that if we know how to recognize it. And that says plenty, just in and of itself.
So, here you have the nafs, the commanding self, which, like I said, is Gurdjieff's man 1, 2, and 3. That would be the commanding nafs for man 1, the blaming nafs for man 2, and the inspired nafs for man 3. And this is to say, the focus is either on the instincts, on the emotions, or what are called the emotions in the body, or on the mind, which is what we usually assume we have, but is also of the body. What you think of as your mind is the machine, well programmed to think in particular patterns, to give you words and images that can then be combined with feelings and physical sensations to create a reality for you. And all of it is ephemeral. It exists only as long as your body exists in the form that it is now. Remove the body, and it's not there anymore. It is not eternal. It is not anything that is going to persist in any way without this physical form holding it together, because it is made by this physical form. It is a product of our neurology, our musculature, and our skeletal system. Now, this commanding self is very smart. It's clever. The ruh, on the other hand, in most people is kind of dumb because it has never had a chance to develop. Its job is to develop. and not to develop to take over from the nafs, but to develop and work in conjunction with the nafs. But it can only do that under certain circumstances. The terror of the situation is that something happened to us some maybe 10,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, somewhere in there, not that long ago in the history of the world, that got us trapped in the conditioned self and stopped the natural evolution of the conditioned self, the meat self, and the spirit self working together. This may be the fall of humanity. Probably not, but that's one suggestion I've heard. Thoughts so far?
Yeah, what questions might you have so far?
Well, I'm unfamiliar with the Sufi terms. How does this correlate with the essence and the personality?
I'm glad you asked that because I meant to mention that. Nafs is personality. Ruh is essence. They are almost exact corollaries to each other. And my suspicion is that this is where Gurdjieff got this model. I've always been fascinated with where did he find this stuff? And, you know, it's obvious that some of it came from Tibetan Buddhism, some of it came from certain areas of Hindu thought, some of it came from Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and a whole bunch of it came from his contact with various Sufis, specifically the Naqshbandi and Yesevi orders. Which he pretty much comes out and says. But if people are afraid of Islam, they ignore that part, so.
Does that help a bit, Eugene? Good. Yeah, anybody else have questions? If not,
No?
Oh,
Oh,
Ailey, yes.
Yeah, Ailey,
Yeah.
yes.
About the rule. You translate it as breath, but my opinion is that it starts at the moment of the exhale and the sperm. When I translate rule as a kind of life force. The human being, the first 9 months, is one with the mother in the womb. And then if the fetus come out, then it has to breathe. And the breathe is by using the breast, it has to, the life force has to work, and it makes a cry, a sound. And that is all the work from the rule, but it starts 9th month earlier. That's how I understand.
Well, you're not wrong in that ruh can be translated as life force. And this is why within the Jewish tradition they say that a fetus is not a living human being until its first breath. And if you look at the root, it starts with the idea of breath. And we have an interesting term in Arabic Ruh al-Quds, which literally means the holy breath or the Holy Spirit, the sacred spirit, which is the same as Rosh al-Qudus in Hebrew. And somehow in Christianity, this idea got turned into some dude who's a ghost. But it literally means the sacred breath or the sacred spirit. And spirit and breath in this are one idea. And it's something that you find in a bunch of languages, that you find this two words for both breath and spirit.
Yeah, the Jehovah, they use the term ruach, also
Yeah.
from ruh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that root has gotten around all over the place for a good reason. So, think of Ruh as essence. Think of it as the divine gift. Because if you think about the creation story, you had all of these animals before man, right? The only difference between man as humanity and dog, other than dogs are better than people, is that dogs were not created, or dogs were created first, and as far as we know, there wasn't the same sort of infusing the divine into matter. You know, we could debate that for hours, because I am pretty sure that when it comes to certain creatures, they have more divinity than people do. But that's just me. Dogs being one of them.
Aw.
Yeah. Remember,
And
dog is just God spelled backwards.
All right, great. So let's move forward, and we can take time for more questions as we go.
Yeah. But this is good discussion. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. So this is the problem. The problem is that you, in the general sense, not anybody here, but everybody else out there, is a stimulus response meat machine. And they don't notice it because they have no sense of their own mechanicalness. Nor mentions the internet. The internet made this so apparent. Think of all of the people you know on the internet that when a particular subject comes up, you know how they're going to react. You can almost predict the exact words that they will say. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I'm seeing
It
some
doesn't
nods,
get
yeah.
much more mechanical than that. And it's like they've just been programmed with this particular mimetic function. And I don't mean meme in the sense of cute kitty pictures. I mean it in its original sense of an idea virus that has been transmitted to them and that they adopt. So the interesting question is, what do you do about this? And the answer is, you have to wake up the machine. Excuse me. You have to wake up the nafs. The trouble with the nafs is asleep. That's the part of you that's asleep. The ruh, the essence is not asleep. The essence is not capable of sleep. The essence is present no matter what. But it tricks itself into a sense of thinking that it's asleep by identification. Your essence is identified with the objects presented to it. And so it becomes fixated and it is fixated on the sleep of the machine.
So what are some examples of objects?
My thoughts, memories, and opinions of my mother are all objects presented to consciousness, to being. Pretty much any political opinion that I would hold given to me by any political party, any religious dogma that I might hold. Yeah, like I said, this is going to upset some people. So hit the like buttons for us, because there's going to be a lot of people hitting the hate button.
So could that be like philosophical dogma as well?
Oh yeah, sure. Get a Stoic and an existentialist discussing each other, and the knives will come out within 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had a question.
Sure,
Yes, Jonathan.
What happens to all those opinions when you allow essence, the Ru, to 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 enter?
They still exist as opinions. They don't go away, but they will no longer have an effect on you, because you are the Ruh. It's not the Ruh is not something that you have. It is what you are. It is the eye that looks out from behind your eyes, that is fascinated by all of this stuff that the machine presents to it. So, the nafs has all of these qualities. The ruh only has three qualities. Three, there we go. Those are, it is present. It has attention, and it has intention. All of these three are incredibly weak. Think of somebody who has been in a coma their entire life, and they come out of the coma. They will barely be able to move their body, and they will be exhausted by the act of sitting up, for instance. Eating will wear them out. Breathing is a trial. That's how weak most people's ruh is. And yet, that is the only thing that can wake up the machine. It's the only thing that can wake up the nafs. And you need to have an awakened nafs for the ruh to be able to develop. Right now, in most people around the world, the nafs is asleep and dreaming and mostly having nightmares. And it's just spewing all of this stuff out. All of these opinions, all of these beliefs, all of these considerations, all of this stuff is just being thrown at your essence for your essence to become chronically addicted to. Another way of thinking about this is watching a daytime soap opera. You ever know anybody who was addicted to soap operas? I have. It was a little bit frightening, because this person acted as if all of this stuff that was going on as shadows being projected by a cathode ray tube. And when I say shadows, this was in glorious black and white, so it literally was shadows. Acting as if it had some sort of intrinsic meaning, or that it was real in any sense of the word. And their life revolved around this. They would not miss their soaps for nothing. The world stopped while they fixated upon this 26-inch cathode ray tube and stared at it for a half an hour while being fixated to the events happening on the screen. that is analogous to your life. Not anybody here, like I said, not your lives, but all of those other lives out there. Have I upset anybody yet? Show of hands. Who's upset by this idea?
I think we're doing okay. But yeah, Jonathan, your audio's a little staticky, but you're fine when you talk.
Okay, good. So
So keep talking.
let's say there's someone called Jake, and I don't like Jake. He makes me mad whenever I meet him, or makes me upset. If I were to bring in essence, or allow the Ru to be present, you're saying those opinions of Jake don't have an effect anymore. But can I still use? But do they have? Surely I need to still have some value in that opinion of Jake. I need to avoid Jake, or should I avoid Jake, or can I now meet
Who
with Jake?
knows?
It
You
gives
might
you
find that Jake is not the person you thought he was. Jake is not the projection of him that you have. There's an old saying, if you make, how does that go? The best thing to do with an enemy is to see if you can make them a friend. Because nobody is an enemy in their own eyes. Jake doesn't think he's wrong. Of course, he mechanically doesn't think he's wrong. You mechanically think he is. Neither of these have any intrinsic meaning. And then you might find that Jake provides wonderful friction for helping you stay awake.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to offer is that it offers, instead of this entrenched reaction that you may have to Jake, it allows you the flexibility to be more open minded, perhaps more, if need be, more proactive, to be more responsive to situations in a more organic way rather than being dependent on your preconceived notions of your experience of Jake, which is, pretty much the same thing as what Mushtaq is saying, just said differently.
Yeah. And that being said, stop worrying about Jake. That's just a distraction. Jake is another projection of your ego, of your nafs. Work on yourself. Don't worry about other people at this point. You can worry about other people when you have perfected yourself. Does this mean that you need to hang out with Jake? No. If I find somebody unpleasant, I don't spend time with them. But I will try and find what mechanical part of myself experiences the unpleasantness. And I will look to see where I feel like I need to be right about something. One of the great manifestations of this is the sense of, I'm right, they're wrong. Religious wars have been fought over this one thing. Think about it. I'm right, they're wrong. I'm so right that I need to go out and conquer these people and force them to admit the rightness of my position. Do you realize how fucking crazy that is?
I saw,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I saw Tommy unmute himself. He probably has something related to share.
No,
Yeah.
I was sorry. I was just going to say that's where external considering would come on.
Yeah.
You sort of see the other person as a mirror, and literally Jake would be your work. That would be the idea. Like you say, you could find a blind spot in yourself so easy, and then he could be the best thing that ever happened. Then you could learn so much from that. Because I noticed that in my own life years ago, that most hurt people, and that a lot of the time you can learn so much from people that you seem to give you a hard time, but so that just came up, like I say, external considering.
Yep, and you ain't wrong. So, here you have this problem. The problem is you have a sleeping machine. You have a nafs that is commanding you, nafs alamara. And you would like to have your essence develop. And yet, your machine is very, very strong. And your essence is very, very weak. What do you do? This is not a rhetorical question, folks. What do you do? Well, yes.
Could a possible answer be, at least initially, is to find ways to weaken the machine?
Sort of, not exactly weaken, but awaken.
I mean, one reason why we might not want to weaken it is because it is our body, right? We still need our body.
In a certain sense, we strengthen the machine.
Yeah.
The
Give it
machine,
purpose. you
yeah,
know, give it
yeah,
direction.
the machine is all of this, and it manifests in a certain sense as patterns of chronic tension throughout the body. Any place that you have chronic tension is a place where there's a lot of energy bound up and is distorting the nafs. And anybody who has experienced any serious body work knows that if you press on certain places in your body in certain ways, you get things like memories coming up, right? It's all related. The core is the nervous system. The machine functions within the nervous system and expands into the rest of the body. Nervous system first, muscular system next, fascial system after that, and then the skeletal system last. And then there's the organs. But we're going to look at the nervous system. So everybody here has a degree of chronic tension in their face that creates your persona mask. One simple exercise, and we've talked about this before, is learning to release that chronic tension in your face and release the persona mask. That alone will change your personality. It's kind of weird. And it will mitigate a lot of the effects that we think of as aging. So, people use, and it's not just women who use this, men use this too. People will use Botox, which is the toxin produced by the botulism bacteria, to paralyze the muscles in their face, thereby making wrinkles go away. None of them have said, well, if the wrinkles go away when I paralyze these muscles, why don't I just learn to relax these muscles? Nobody asked that question. I like to point this out. Here is me. I have a fairly old face. I'm 70 years old. You will notice that I don't have hardly any wrinkles, not even crow's feet. And this is because I learned early in my life to do this relaxation exercise of constantly releasing the tensions that the personality creates within the face. And because I do this, my face doesn't get chronically scrunched up. It's not the same as staying young forever, but is the same of it is getting older without the effects of toxic age. And if you can do that, you can do that with your whole body. And you need to. You need to learn the ways of releasing the chronic tensions in the body to the extent that you can, given whatever physical limitations you are stuck with because you were born into this particular body. And that's a major help because that's all energy that's bound up that you could be using. Now, how do you do this? Like I said, the Ruh, the you that is the actual you, the I beyond the I, has only three qualities. It will only ever have three qualities. It will never develop more qualities than this because this is all it needs. It has presence. Presence is determined by the question, am I awake or am I asleep? Intention is determined by the question, what is my choice? And attention is the power of manifesting that choice. So, I bring myself into the awake state. I bring myself into a state of presence. Then, I set my intention, which is to observe the machine, observe the nafs. And then I put my attention on my own personality, on my own ego. This is basically self-observation. It is less complex than what we have described before in many ways. And the secret is this is the beginning of the real self-observation. The rest of it is psychological in nature. The first step is attend to the machine. Ailey, you have thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about will? Is that also part of the essence or not?
Will and intention can be interchangeable. So we can talk about the will to attention, and I talked about that in a talk a while ago.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you hear will, you can put intention. When you hear intention, you can put will.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, step one.
Step one, put your attention on the nafs. Just that. And that, in and of itself, will begin to cause your machine to awaken. Here's the thing. When your machine is asleep, when your nafs is asleep, you are expending huge amounts of energy. It's dreaming. You will see this in the body. So you have people who are doing this all the time, right? Tapping their foot, looking around, all of this kind of stuff.
Switching around, trying to get comfortable. Like that.
Yeah, all of that. When the nafs awakens, that all becomes still. You enter into a state of shanta, of tranquility within the body. And then the energy that is usually dissipated in all of that twitching, snorting, scratching, belching stuff that goes on when the machine is asleep is available for awakening. This is a gradual process. This is literally alchemical transformation. And the old texts say the alchemical fire is a slow heat. You don't throw the material into a huge blazing furnace. You begin to bring it up slowly, adding more and more heat as the process of transformation begins to take place. Are you following this so far? Good, let's all try it. Everybody take a breath. A little breath in, long breath out. And ask yourself, am I awake or am I asleep? And check inside and see. You'll notice that for a moment you're awake because just the act of checking wakes you up. Find that sense of awakeness and apply it as attention to your personality, and just put your attention on what your personality is doing. You can attend to your body, you can attend to your mind, you can attend to your emotions. Just watch. Don't try and change anything. Don't try and do anything. Just pay attention to this for as long as you can hold it, which for most people is a few seconds, which is kind of cool because then you have to breathe again. So you take another breath, let it out, nice and long and slow. And at the end of that, when you pause at the end breath, you ask yourself, am I awake or am I asleep? Am I asleep or am I awake? Check and see. Find that moment of awakeness. Hold it while you observe your personality. Just observe. Don't do anything else. And hold that state of observation for as many breaths as you can. And when you lose it, you take another breath. Let it out. Slow, long exhale. Hit the pause at the end. Am I asleep or am I awake? Oh, I'm awake. Attend to your ego. Do not, under any circumstances, allow yourself to go into a trance. You will want to. That's the ego's defense mechanism. It says, oh, here, go to sleep. I'll give you a nice dream. You don't want the nice dream. You want to be present. Present means awake, in the room where you are, having the experience that you're experiencing, and observing the patterns of conditioning that exist within your body-mind consciousness. We have all these new agey words that don't quite describe the phenomena, but we'll have to do in a pinch. And then you stop, because you can only do this for a couple of minutes at first. How did that feel, doing that? And if any of you fell into a trance, come on back.
Yeah, you can chime in if you'd like. Nancy.
It felt kind of open and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I was noticing some things that aren't fully conscious and not entirely comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's usually what happens. But you notice it didn't actually hurt you, because you're just watching.
And it's what's already there.
Yeah.
Which is a good point.
Levita, what did you think? She may have to get back to us.
She's asleep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's not asleep. She's in a trance.
All right. Who else? David, how about you?
I noticed that practicing self-observation, and naming and discovering of the addictions and preoccupations and tensions and things is the first step to, like, it feels like the first step to coming away from them and bringing everything back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The mere act of observing the sleep of the machine, the dreaming of the nafs, begins to awaken it. And you should notice this because you've been doing a lot of this kind of work of late. And so I think it should be fairly apparent to you.
Thanks, David. Oh, you, Malu. Oh, okay. Sydney has to take off. It's baby time.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Malu, yes. Feel free.
I don't know. There's not so much going on right now.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, I don't know. It's somewhere in between being there and actually following, and also not being sure if I'm actually following.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah. Do you want to finish your thought? While my, do you have something related? Let's have Wild chime
it's
in.
fine. Yeah.
I hope it's related. At least it's related to my mind, in my mind, but I could be wrong. I had a family gathering a few hours ago, and some things were said in what I would deem to be a very mechanical, robotic manner, and I caught myself having the impulse to respond, but I stopped, and my I sort of stepped back, and I felt that my responses were coming from a really annoyed and pissed off sort of part of me, which is very indicative of nafs al-ammara. There was a part of me almost commanding me, you need, for want of a better expression, and please pardon me, you need to shut this guy up, or you need to put this person, you need to put that point back in its place. It was very commanding,
Mm.
but my ability just to stop for a second and ask myself, where is that coming from within me? Where is that coming from? And for me to look for that part seems to almost correlate with what you were saying, Mushtaq, about observing. Just observe it.
Yes, you are
And the
exactly right. This is the process that we are describing here.
and the more I did that, the more I felt the need to go into my dhikr, just to go into my breath. And I use the word, I'm going to use the word ruh in essence, because when I breathe in dhikr, when I breathe with the consciousness of detaching from the gunk that wants me to respond, I just feel that's more ruh than it is nefes. And you're absolutely right. In Arabic, we have those two words, but they're used very differently in context. I think ruh is when I breathe with that conscious thought of being awake and not being a slave to that impulsive command. I feel that's more towards the ruh side. And then I just kept in that ruh, that breath pattern for just a few breaths really. But and then I had no desire to say anything, just to sit, listen, and smile, and go on with a beautiful day.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes. So, zikr, for those who aren't familiar with that word, that's a type of meditation, primarily from the Sufi tradition, in which you
Yeah.
are in remembrance of, the higher reality. And it kind
Yeah,
of,
I think of it more of a practice than a meditation.
yeah, yeah. I just want people to have
But it's a
that
thing that Sufis do.
Yes. So, for you, Malu, I mean, there are moments that are. First of all, I think for all of us, this takes practice, so that is a given. But I think for some of us, it can take a sense of accepting that the moment is challenging, that all kinds of stuff is coming up that seems to be disruptive or interruptive, but it is actually part of the process. Does that make sense for you, Malu?
Yeah, it does. It's just that sometimes it's strange when these things don't come.
Yeah.
And like, aren't I supposed to observe something? And in this moment, it's just not. But this is also a thing. Like once I sat down and we're like, okay, I'm gonna write down all the thoughts in my head, and I just wrote a poem about that. There are no thoughts when I'm trying to write them down. It's like the moment I'm like, I look at you. It's like I'm not there. Like the birds, when you stare at them, they fly away.
Yeah. And it is sort of like that. And the thing is, I suspect that you're doing this completely correctly and you're getting the response that I would expect you to get. Because when you allow essence to be aware of ego, the ego doesn't like that. It's like staring at a cat. The cat does not like to be stared at, and it will get up and leave the room.
Like, no thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So please assume that you're actually doing this right, even if it doesn't seem particularly spectacular, because most of the time it's not.
Yeah, most of the time it really isn't. Yes. Eugene, I know. you've been,
No, I
waiting.
just wanted to say, I experience this as sort of like a wheel in the hub. You know, on the wheel, the spokes and the rim, kind of like personality. And I experience moving in and out from the further out in personality, then I can move back into the hub sort of, like sometimes you experience just the stillness of the center, and then, but it's various intensities of experience. But it's
That
very,
reminds me, that's a very Taoist way of talking about this, which is kind of perfect. You know, the Tao Te Ching says the value of a cup is in the empty space inside. The value of a wheel is in its hub. And the thing that I learned from my first Tai Chi teacher was to work to be the hub, work to be the empty place at the center where everything is revolving around you. So I think you're onto something there.
yeah, my initial experience on the spiritual path was with I Ching and Taoism. So it's kind of a fundamental perspective I have.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is very compatible with the, in general, the Sufi perspective as well.
Yeah, because we stole all of the good Taoist stuff from them when we got out to China. We just
Yeah.
snatched it up.
Swoop.
Yep.
Yes.
By
Tommy,
practicing the self-observation, I, I mind this week reading, it's like you're almost like hermetically sealing yourself against the effects of life. Sometimes when you can catch yourself, and I think it was like coupled with self-remembering and not identifying with negative emotions and the external considering, and them all together can keep you kind of where life doesn't seem to be pushing your buttons. And you're, I noticed there when you said the question, am I awake? You'd said it a few months ago, I think it was one.
Yeah.
When I done that, when I said, am I awake? Everything seemed more vivid, the experience then, just asking that question to yourself, but that's what I thought anyway.
Yeah, that is one of the
Interesting, yeah.
best sleight of mind questions I have ever come across, ever experienced, ever thought of. Because that question produces a moment of awakeness. You get that, oh. And even if it's just for a moment, you have the experience and you can keep coming back over and over again. You say, am I awake? And you go, yeah.
It's like a quick inward glance that opens an opportunity. And, you know, that's kind of the essence of the practice at large, so you just learn how to sustain that, essentially. And then as you gain confidence that this is possible, it's less... we get insecure about our ability to do this, and that insecurity makes it all the more difficult. So this question allows for the experience of it happening, so that then you can recognize it as it occurs, as it becomes easier and easier to do as you allow it to happen. It feels more natural and less hard to get at.
Yeah. So, Ailey, yes.
Yeah. So by starting waking up, the essence become stronger.
Yes.
And so all the attention that you, with the question, am I awake? You give energy to your essence. Grow
Yep.
up, isn't it?
Yep.
When is it full grown? How do
That's
you
a
know
good
that?
question.
Good question. I guess.
My sense is that essence is infinite. So however you have on this planet to work is how much it will grow. And afterwards, who knows?
How
I don't think there's an end.
Okay. How corresponded the essence with human adulthood?
Human adulthood.
Human adulthood is where essence and ego begin to touch. It's like the first step. It's at the very beginning, not at the end.
Yeah, it is not. It is on the path, but it's if you want to nurture essence, you can't really stop there.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, to recapitulate, everything that most people experience as I is just the nervous system firing. It is the instinctual center, the emotional center, the intellectual center in the Gurdjieffian sense, or the nafs in its 3 stages. There is the higher emotional center and the higher intellectual center. These are of the Ruh, and they cannot develop until the machine is brought to a state of quiet, which is to say awakeness. When the machine is awake, you can develop the emotion, the feeling and emotion of Ruh, and the thought of Ruh, which are completely different than what we experience in a day-to-day nafs sort of way. And what we want is to get the machine quiet enough that it can sit there and be awake and be attentive and allow us the energy to develop these higher centers, for lack of a better word. I hate the idea of higher and lower. It's not linear. It's just how we're stuck talking about it
It's
until
a
we can come up
metaphor.
with something better. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a metaphor. It's a map.
So I think it's safe to say, you know, once you reach a point of recognition that sometimes you have these little tastes of awakeness even before you realize that's what it is. That's kind of like the whispering of the Ruh, like, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to talk to you, I'm trying to share things with you. I'm encouraging you to listen to me, even if sometimes that doesn't always work out.
So there you have it. Thoughts, questions, last comments.
We have a question from Eugene,
Yes.
and Nancy is unmuted. Nancy, we'll get to you next.
Okay.
Eugene asks, can you expand on the meaning or implication of the terror of the situation? Yeah, we
Yeah.
did kind of touch on that, but let's see.
Yeah, we can touch on it a bit more.
Revisit that,
The
yeah.
terror of the situation is to realize that you are not a creature of free will. You are a robot. You are a machine, and you're programmed, and you're playing out your programming all the time. You have no free will. You have no choice. That's the terror of the situation. Most people recoil from that violently. And when I say violently, I mean violently.
I mean, I remember my first response to it was, ew, I don't like this metaphor. That sounds really repulsive and uninteresting to me.
Yeah, it is repulsive because we
Yeah.
do not want to face up to it.
And I mean, I understand it as a metaphor now. So even if I
Yeah.
don't like the idea of like human beings being machines, I understand the metaphor of mechanical behavior. And that really is what it
And
is.
my suggestion is that it ain't a metaphor, it's the
Yeah.
reality. And like I said, you can see it every day on social media because
Yeah.
you know amongst your friends the exact response that each one of them is going to have to any particular stimuli.
Yeah, and you
You
mentioned...
put up a picture of Donald Trump and you're going to get a very set group of responses.
Well, you mentioned the nervous system, and the
Yeah.
nervous system it functions in a way that it requires mechanisms. You know, it's all mechanisms. It's all this happens, leads to this. Input this, this comes out. And so in that way, yes, it is more than just a metaphor for sure. Yeah. And once we develop this sense of essence, this sense of rule, we have a bit more, well, maybe a lot more means to engage that machine in a healthy way.
Yeah, and until you can accept the terror of the situation, and you can accept that your life has been basically mechanical, you can't do anything about it. You are just kind of stuck there.
Yep. But I mean, you can make the machine work for you if you put in the work to be able to do so. So, the terror of the situation is completely lacking any sense of agency
Yeah.
in relationship to that machine.
And the saving grace is the realization that you have the possibility of developing your own agency.
It's we don't have to hate this machine.
No, we
No.
we want to love the machine. Basically, the body and its ego keep us alive.
Yeah, I've always liked the way we talk about it being kind of like a... I think we described it as kind of like a well-trained, beloved pet dog, right?
Yeah. And that's how it should be. And it should be, it's going to protect you, and it's going to befriend you. It's going to give you affection, just as a good dog would. And it will act in your defense by just responding to situations. And you have to have control of it. So just because it decides that the mailman is a threat doesn't mean that you allow it to eat the mailman.
I love this as a working metaphor. I think it works pretty well for most of us.
Yeah, at least for those of us who like dogs.
Yeah, and everybody should like dogs.
Yes. Dogs are God's favorite creature.
Cats are awesome too. Don't get me wrong. I have a strong love for cats.
Yeah. And guinea pigs, and rabbits,
Yes.
and squirrels,
Crows. Yes.
and frogs,
Snails.
snails. Snails are good, as long as they stay
Bees.
off my plants. Bees are great. Yeah.
Okay, so point given, we hope. Eugene, yeah. Then we're gonna get to Nancy next.
Yeah, I'll just add that it's a mystery of the body, and in meditation I've done for a long, long time. But when I incorporate or become more aware of my body, and I do the Gurdjieff exercises, and it's immensely transformed my life, really.
Mm,
And it's just amazing how we ignore the body. You know, our
right.
whole culture ignores the body. The body is just, you know, and if you think about it, the mystery of the body is just overwhelming. I mean, your body is just this elaborate brain working, you know,
Yeah.
and
And
we
I
just ignore it, treat it like just however we do. So anyhow, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think people who think that they're not ignoring the body, they're still they're mistreating it. They're pushing it in ways that are not necessarily conducive to this growth and this opportunity for it to find a place of rest while the essence does the work. Anyways, thank you so much, Eugene. That was good
Extremely
to
useful.
harken back to the terror of the situation. Thank you. All right, Nancy, yes. Thanks
Yeah,
for
I
being
was
so patient.
no problem, or a medium-sized problem, but um, I was wondering about to what extent you would want to set it up as a project. Like, choose the thing that drives you the craziest. Choose a small problem. Just see what's on your mind now.
That is something that you can do later, preferably uh, with the help of a teacher and or a group to
Mm,
support you through that, because it's always easy to get lost in that.
yeah. And plus, if your nervous system is still really fired up and not really able to regulate, then it's hard to take projects like that on and um, walk through that with grace. I'm not trying to be super corny. Those are just the words that are coming to me
No,
right now. Yeah.
that's fine. No, I mean, first I was thinking there's the challenge of choosing a small irritant instead of just jumping to the hardest thing. And then I was
Absolutely.
thinking,
Start small. That's for
and
sure.
then I was thinking that what Mushtak was actually leading us through was just what happens to be on your mind now, large,
Mm,
small, whatever.
yeah. And sometimes it's okay to bracket things like, okay, I know that's a problem. I'm not resourced enough to handle that right now, but
Mhm,
I am going to bookmark it and maybe save it for after I've had lunch and a nap or
mhm.
after I've had 2 months of therapy. Whatever you might need in order to be well resourced to handle that. And by the time you get there, you might feel like, wow, I don't feel like that's a problem now. I've handled those little wrinkles that I needed to sort out between when I thought of this and when I've made time to address it. You never know. But yes, bookmarking that can definitely be a thing that you do in order to strategize around this stuff. So thanks, Nancy, for bringing that
Welcome.
up. Any other questions or thoughts? Aaron, you've been quiet. I'm
Yeah.
thinking. Ailey, yeah.
If you develop your essence, then on a certain part, you come to develop also your higher bodies. And Gurdjieff wrote also about to become immortal. What does it mean, immortal? If you are in that state, what is it?
Yeah, in that state, the suggestion is that the ruh, which is here to develop, if it actually wakes up, if it actually has enough presence to develop itself, if you, as I, are awake to the universe, then whatever it is that is you will persist consciously rather than unconsciously just dissolve back into the all. That's the basic theory. I don't know because I ain't dead yet, so I can't tell you for sure.
Okay.
But my sense is that there is something to that, because I do know that when the body dies, whatever it built goes with it. The nervous system is gone, and that means memory is gone. This idea of immortality is impressing some of that memory and skills and that sort of thing onto essence so that it can continue. Yeah, it's a theory.
It's a theory, and
Yeah.
there's also a catch here, because the attachment to immortality, of course, this is all in theory, that could be what holds you back from being able to further develop your essence. So it's kind of like you
Oh,
need
yeah.
to let that go in order to develop the essence.
Yeah, I had a friend. His name was Lenny, and he was totally obsessed with not dying. He was convinced that he could find ways to live forever.
Yeah.
And he built an entire empire on this concept. And then he died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, the attachment to control.
Yes.
You know, control and agency do increase as you grow essence, but you cannot be attached to that. That cannot be a primary goal, you know,
Yeah.
ultimately of why you're doing it.
And in some ways, that's the ultimate trap.
Yeah.
Because as my teacher used to say to me frequently, remember, God is God and you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Even though your essence
You're
is
welcome.
identical to the divine essence, it is not the divine essence in its totality. Small, tiny little mirror.
I mean, what works for me is to think of it as a gift, and I want to treat that gift well. And it's the part about it being a gift keeps me humble. I didn't have to get this opportunity.
Yeah. There is a great Eunice Emery poem that I'm going to have to find. That I can't quote the entirety of it right now, but I will look it up. And it basically says, what you have now is what you will have then. Just because your body is rotting doesn't mean you're going to have the entirety of paradise. What you create in this world is what you get in the next world. Paraphrasing. He said it so much better, but like
Maybe
I said,
we
I
can
haven't.
find it later. Yeah.
Oh, I'll find it. I'll post it on the forum for people because it's a nice poem, and everybody
make
should know
note.
Eunice. Eunice is one of our cousins. So for
Thanks,
me,
Haley.
that's pretty much it. Any last thoughts and or questions and considerations? He said as he switched over to Brady Bunch mode.
Brady Bunch mode.
Here we are. Malu, how are you doing? You look so serious. Have we not amused you?
It's my relaxed face.
Okay.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Resting serious face. I mean, I didn't see it, but
I'm
like your
working on not.
face.
I'm not getting wrinkles. So.
Yeah. Well, I started when I was about your age, so I think it's the perfect time to start. That's when I first learned that practice.
I have wrinkles from squinting. My vision is bad, as many of you know. So that is my challenge, to make sure my corrective lenses are strong enough that I don't need to do that. So that's another piece to this too. All right, we are on Brady Bunch mode, I think. Yeah, Aaron's good. Lavita, are you good? Yeah. Okay.
She's good.
She's always good. All right. So I guess we can wave bye to each other and to everyone
Thanks,
watching on
folks. Thanks for
YouTube.
being here.
Yeah, and
And
remember that we also have a talk this evening at 6:30 p.m.
yes, for
Pacific
those of
Daylight
you,
Time.
yeah, who are crazy enough to do this twice in one day.
Very brave.
Yeah, and
Yes.
the talk this evening is going to be in the second part of the Spandakarika. And the reason that I started doing that before doing this is because the Spandakarika is a specific how-to manual for this process. And if you pay attention to what it says, it will teach you how to wake up and get your essence functioning and get your ego awake rather than asleep. That's what it's designed to do. And so, there you have it. There is method to my madness. Or method to Noor's madness sometimes. My madness, her method.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, Aaron says, thanks, everyone. Catch you later on.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.